Blast me to Electia! It's time for the Mad Merlins Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Journey, issue 56. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Mad Merlins Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Journey. So we are starting and finishing on issue 56 today, but before we get into things, let's have our question of the video. So, my question to you this week is, now that we know Imperium has been extended for 10 more issues, what are your thoughts on what those models only issues will be? So drop those down, your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll have a good old chat. But let's move on then with issue 56, and yeah, you guessed it, it's a paint issue. So the paints we get in this issue are Balor Brown and Administratum Grey. So these are just 2 layer paints. The Balor Brown will be used to highlight a lot of our brown leather details that have been done in Mornfang Brown. And Administratum Grey will be used to put extreme highlights on areas we've previously highlighted with Mechanica Standard Grey, as well as being a all-over edge highlight for the Battle Sisters armour. And as you'll see from the front cover, we're also doing some camo patterns on our Librarian and Phobos armour. So there's the paints, and here's the issue. So, like I said, there's the Camouflage tutorial, which we'll get to later on in the video. We got a brand new mission, and we learn about choosing a Warlord. So we got Warzone Damnos, Officio Assassinorum, and we got the new section for play rules, as I said. So let's go vertical and we'll take a closer look through issue 56. So let's open up our magazine and take a look inside. So looking at our contents page, we've got a background page for our Adeptus Sororitas, and this is Miraculous Acts. We've got a good lot of background information to go through. So we've got Warzone Damnos, Officio Assassinorum, Blood Ritual, Wars of Faith, and the Minor Orders. So page 56 onwards is dedicated to highlights. And then we got our Initiate page, pack 17, Chain of Command. So here we have our background page for our Adeptus Sororitas this issue. And this is a little bit of a fluff explanation about Miraculous Acts. So when the Adeptus Sororitas go to war, they do so with the Emperor's blessings. With his light upon them and unbreakable faith in their hearts, the Order Militant are capable of manifesting all manner of wondrous miracles upon the battlefield. So what this is a series of tables that, depending on the miracle dice you sacrifice to automatically make a roll, will give a little bit of extra background information and fluff on what may happen. So if we look at our first table here, we got using bolt weapons, and if we sacrifice a 6 to make a hit or wound roll with a bolt weapon, as the sister hefts her weapon, a flock of doves erupt from the ether and stream towards her target, guiding her aim. So we got ones for the Eviscerator chainswords there, and other generic close combat weapons. So we got the same here, but this time this is for morale tests, so mainly for 1s, 2s and 3s you sacrifice. So if we look at the Seraphim, if we sacrifice a 2 to help pass the morale test, lilting harps ring out across the battlefield, stirring the Seraphim to renewed acts of violence. And then finally we have one for the save rolls. So we've got quite more in the way of Battle Sisters and Seraphim than we have for the Repentia, as Repentia only has a save of 6. But if we look here, if we sacrifice a 6 for the Repentia, purity seals glow brightly, wreathing the bearer in the Emperor's light. Swords and bullets alike are turned aside. So, nice little bit of extra background fluff, etc., to help bring our characters to life a little bit more. Moving on then, our first page of background is all about Damnos. So, when the Necron Tomb world awoke on Damnos, the Ultramarines are unable to stop the Xenos from conquering the planet. However, they were at the spear tip of an Imperial assault that reclaimed Damnos. Yet the Necrons were not done with the icy mining world. They would soon return. So, at the height of the Indomitus Crusade, while Ultramar itself is beget by the Death Guard, and the Ultramarines have also spread their forces thin to the far reaches of Vigilus, the Necrons of the Zarak dynasty returned to Damnos with an intention to reclaim their lost empire there. The Ultramarines, not willing to give up that vital mining world, sent a call for help, and the Sons of Guilliman, the Iron Hounds, Liberators, and Brazen Consuls all responded to the telepathic communications and sent strike forces to help liberate Damnos. The Iron Hounds were important in holding the capital city of Damnos. The Liberators did lightning strikes, while the Brazen Consuls' fleet vehicles helped break up the Necron fleet. But it wasn't until a victory was almost certain until the Necrons reactivated dolmen gates across the surface of the planet and below its core, below its crust, and more Necrons started pouring forth from across the galaxy. The call was also answered by the White Scars and Salamanders. The Ultramarines had detected warp signals, but luckily it was the form of aid with a fleet of White Scars and Salamanders ready to help turn the battle for Damnos over to the Imperium's favour. So, moving on, factions. We've got a background bit about the Officio Assassinorum, and this is a inquisitorial report by Katerina Greyfax there. Ordo Hereticus Record 1075-1881, Officio Assassinorum. Information included within this report is highly classified. Note that the temples of the Officio Assassinorum are highly secretive, their operations beyond the oversight of even the Ordo Hereticus. The following report includes a degree of speculation as to the activities and operations of the Officio Assassinorum. So the report goes on to detail what the assassins are and who they are and what they do. So the assassins is mainly orphans taken from Imperial worlds. They are psycho-indoctrinated and hypno-indoctrinated and trained to become remorseless, merciless, and relentless living weapons. There are various types of different assassins. Temples such as the Kalidus, the Aversor, Calexis, and Vindicares. And there's also other smaller temples such as the Vanus and the Venenum. So over on the other page, we got the major temples. So the Kalidus assassins are manipulators and stealth agents. They can transform their figure to appear as anything before appearing and taking out their target with the Necron phase blade that they utilize. Next, we've got the Vindicares. These guys are one-man killing machines. They use the Neuro Gauntlet as well as toxin-infused bolt rounds. And they are often sent in to eliminate high-value targets. They often drop in by the small stasis pod before they emerge and start ripping their opponents limb from limb, which we'll see on the short story here. We have the Calexis Temple, who are nulls, so they have no presence in the warp, and they are often used to combat against Psykers. And finally, we have the Vindicare Master Assassins, specializing in the sniper weapons. So they can often take out their targets, even if that target is in a teeming mass of lesser creatures. Moving on, we got a short story. This one is The Blood Ritual. So, in the imperial city of Karavos, the festering rot of heresy has taken hold. On the eve of their uprising, the assembled followers of the Blood God gather in a desecrated cathedral to offer prayers to the Skull Throne and beseech their Dark Master for strength and fury. So, this is a short story featuring a corn cult. They are making their pre-battle offerings to their deity. But before they can finish their ceremony, a pod crashes through the roof of the cathedral, and out from the said pod comes an Aversa assassin, slashing people to pieces with his neurogauntlet and blowing them clean through with his bolt pistol. Quite a nice little short story. You can get to see a Chaos Ogrin, and I do like how it ends. Lefalan fell backwards, writhing in agony. A final, anguished thought rising through the agony. It wasn't supposed to end like this. That's really cool. Yeah. So, Lefalan is the leader of the cult here. He wields a power fist, which gets ripped off at the end of the battle, which is why he's in so much agony. Moving on then, we got a background page for our Adeptus Sororitas. This is the Wars of Faith. A little bit of short background information. So since their inception, the Adeptus Sororitas have bolstered their ranks to the point that their presence is felt far across the Imperium. No longer the Ecclesiarch's bodyguard, they are an active crusading force, crushing the enemies of the Imperial Creed wherever they fester. So this goes on to explain how a War of Faith will be raised up, how it acts, and starts mentioning a bit about Morven Val, who we'll find out in the next issue. So she has, since becoming Abbess Sanctorum, has declared more and more Wars of Faith, hoping to spread the light of the Emperor back to Imperium Nihilus. Now we have one of my favourite pieces of artwork and codex covers, the old Witch Hunters front cover with a Order Hereticus Inquisitor burning a heretic there, and Battle Sisters surrounding him, leading a forward assault with a living saint flying above them. On the next page over, we got the actual symbol of the Ecclesiarchy. So this is the standard eye of the Imperium. We've got a skull wreathed in a halo here. And this is often seen on banners, robes, and the Battle Sisters will carry Imperial ecclesiastic icons on their belts. And during the gatherings for the War of Faith, they will issue a decree for Imperial cults to rise up, joining the militant arms. Their prisoners will be dragged from their cells and entombed in penitent engines, or even turned into archoflagellants. But again, here we have another piece of artwork from that old Witch Hunters Codex. So we've got archoflagellants here, Repentia, Battle Sisters, Inquisitors. Again, a living saint and a penitent engine there. And some preachers. Looking really cool. I just love that really gothic looking artwork. So our last bit of background information for this issue is all about the Orders Minorus. So these are the lesser Orders Militant. Spread across the Imperium are hundreds of smaller Orders Militant. Each of these is a spiritual descendant of one of the 6 original Orders, but operates independently in battle. So we got Order of the Glowing Chalice, who are descendants of the Ebon Chalice. Order of the Thorn from the Bloody Rose. Order of the Iron Veil, who are descended from the Argent Shroud. This magazine does not want to turn over for me today. Order of the Ashen Shrine, who are descendants of... I've forgotten now, where are they? Doesn't actually say the order. Sacred Rose, there we are. I knew it was there somewhere. So, quite a nice order who believe in the purifying flame of the Emperor. The Order of the Wounded Heart, who are descended from the Valorous Heart, and are quite a bit of a gruesome order. They cleanse their own right hand as their saint, as what happened to their saint, and through that suffering they feel a lot more connection to their saint. And I think my favourite of the orders is the Order of the Golden Light, who are descended from the Order of our Martyred Lady. So while there are very few warriors of the Order of the Golden Light, they are often seen spread across the galaxy and will hop from war zone to war zone almost spectrally. They are surrounded by secrecy and mystery. There are no data banks, information saying that the Order has recruited new members, leading some to believe that they are actually all resurrected martyrs. So, from that, I do like it. It makes them sound more like the Legion of the Damned, who were a Space Marine chapter that are believed to just be the ghostly reincarnations of a doomed chapter, and will turn up when and where they are needed. But I wouldn't mind painting up a small force of these girls in the nice golden armour. It looked nice alongside St. Celestine as well. Alright, moving on then, we're into our issues paint guide. So this is highlights and updates. So first off, we are learning how to paint a camouflage pattern on our librarian's camo cloak. So we are relayering up the cloak with Dawnstone, just picking out the highest folds and the flatter areas. Then with Mechanica Standard Grey, we're going to start picking out patterns, odd sort of shaped patterns, some pointed, some just squared. Then once those dry, we're going to go with Administratum Grey, picking out other some more patterns with Administratum Grey. So we've got some triangles here going over some of them going over the Mechanica Standard Grey. And then finally, we're going to edge highlight all the robes with the Administratum Grey. So that's what our librarian would look like once he's all finished. So keeping with the Space Marines, we are highlighting a lot of the brown details. So first we are going to relayer certain areas with Mournfang Brown just to brighten them up and leave the Agrax Earthshade in the recesses. And then we're going to edge highlight all the belts, gloves, leather tunics, holsters, the books, scabbards and pouches with the Baylor Brown. So we want to do this on all our Space Marines, so the Assault Intercessors, Lieutenant, Librarian, Aggressors, and the Captain. Moving on to our Battle Sisters, so we're going to highlight all the armour with Administratum Grey. So this is picking out all the edges, as well as the fleur-de-lis and the Imperial Aquillas there. We're also picking out the hair with Administratum Grey. And then we're picking out all the holsters and pouches with Baylor Brown edge highlight. So there's a nice little gallery of some of the finished models there. So I've got our Canoness there, Battle Sister, and a Seraphim just to show. Moving on to our Necrons then. So we're going to be using Administratum Grey to highlight the areas we previously highlighted with Dawnstone. So we're picking out just the sharpest and most raised edges of the Canoptic Constructs and the Triarch Stalker there. And again, picking out the edges on the guns, the Cryptex Canoptic Cloak there. And then we have a finished gallery. So you want to do this to the Technomancer, Triarch Stalker, the Immortals, and the Royal Warden. And then the final piece of highlight to do is the Heliotrope Reactor. So we're adding some new colours to that. So first we're going to be layering Administratum Grey all over the white areas, just leaving it the black in the most recessed areas. And finally we're going to edge highlight all the black areas with Dawnstone, and then pick out the top corners with Administratum Grey. And then we got a nicely highlighted reactor. So looking a lot more detailed now, with some nice sharper edges picked out. Looking really good. So, moving on to this issue's mission, we've got Chain of Command, which pits the Necrons against the Space Marines, and we've got some choices ahead of us here. So, We are given a single army list, but we are given 2 choices of HQ. So for the Necrons, we get 10 warriors, 5 mortals, 3 scarabs, a spider, and 5 fade ones. And then our options for HQ is either the Royal Warden or the Technomancer. Luckily, it goes into here what you might want to giving you some ideas on what to consider for which one to go for. The Royal Warden's ability to use his deductive strategy ability might be useful on the Immortals or Warriors, perhaps, letting them fall back and shoot. But then again, the Technomancer might help those Warriors stay alive a bit more, so you might want to choose him instead. You might also want to think about the mission that you're playing and also the opponent. The Cryptek isn't exactly a very good combatant in close combat, so you'd want to keep him out the way and in support only. So if your opponent's got a rather melee-focused army, you might want to try and avoid him getting into range of your opponent's swords. On the Space Marine side, we've got 5 Assault Intercessors, 5 Assault Intercessors, 3 Assault Intercessors, and the 3 Aggressors. Then we've got the choice of either the Lieutenant or the Librarian. And much the same, we've got thinking about how each of those characters will benefit your army. The reroll ability from the Lieutenant might make all your close combat attacks a lot better. But then again, the Librarian's Smite ability might make taking out the Necrons a lot quicker. Again, you might also want to think about your mission. So if the mission's focusing on objectives, then you might want the staying power of the Lieutenant with his Storm Shield. But if it's all about eliminating the enemies, you might want the Librarian with those mortal wounds to deal some extra damage. And then again, think about your opponent. So consider not only your opponent's army list, but their choice. So you might want to counter the healing ability of the Technomancer with the destructive might of the Librarian. And you might want to also think about trying to engage the Technomancer in combat. So maybe the Librarian is pretty good, but the Lieutenant is definitely the better option there. So there's our mission. I'll get the battlefield set up, and I'll be right back. So before we get into the battle report, here's a quick gallery of all my updated battle system models. So here are the Seraphim, and as you can see, the armor does look quite nice. Now it's picked out with that edge highlight. Any mistakes I made, I just tidied up with a little bit of Abaddon Black. It's always safer to go back over a mistake rather than to try and correct it by applying more and more of the highlight colour. So if you do make a rather thick line on the armour, just get a little bit of your base colour and slowly feather that in and reduce the area of the highlight. But as you can see, they do look quite awesome. I've picked out all the areas the magazine told me to, so the belts, the hair, and the armor panels, and all the other icons. And here's the Battle Sisters. Again, I've picked out all those highlights, and they really look a lot more finished now. I've also picked out the wood effect on the back of the simulacrum, as you'll see shortly, with some Balor Brown. That does look quite nice now. But again, I've picked out all the hair and armor trims with the Administration Grey, and I picked out all the belts and pouches, etc. with the Balor Brown. So, as you can see, it looks really good there on the Superior's belt. And all in all, I do quite like how these models are starting to look. And finally, our models that we had to highlight was the Repentia Superior and the Canoness here. I've now glued the front of the Canoness's robe on, but as you can see, there's a bit of a gap there, so I'm just going to have to live with that, I'm afraid. But they are now starting to come together quite nicely. I've highlighted all the armors, robes, and everything that we've been told to. For the whips, I've highlighted each side and left a line of black. I've even had to touch up the black in places, just so it doesn't overpower with the grey. But all in all, it looks quite nice. The only things left to paint on our Repentia is the flame effects on her backpack there. So we'll be doing that, I believe, in a future issue when we learn to do other smoke paint details. So we're using our Troll Slayer orange and probably a dry brush with black. But there we have all our finished models. So on to our battle report for issue 56 then. Okay, the game board is set up and we are all deployed, ready for mission 56. So I've chosen to go for the Librarian and Royal Warden as the commanders of the force. And as per rules, we have both selected the Slay the Warlord secondary objective. So if we kill the enemy warlord by the end of the battle, we score 6 points. But up until the end of the battle, we have 3 objectives to fight over, each scoring 5 victory points for holding the objectives and an extra 5 for holding more than the opponent. So what I will be doing is awarding 1 token for every 5 points a side earns, just so I don't run out of tokens. So, as you can see, it's corner deployments, and I've pretty much put a line of Space Marines along their deployment zone, and the Necrons got the warriors here, ready to surge forward. The Immortals have got no man's land covered, and the Spider and the Scarabs are going to go that way. Over here, the Aggressors and the 3-man Assault Intercessor squad are going to focus on the bottom corner here, whereas the larger squads are ready to surge forward and claim the central objectives. The only units put into reserve are the flayed ones in their transdimensional pocket. And that is that. So, as we haven't got our Psychic Discipline yet for our Librarian, that is coming in a future issue, he'll just be using his Smite power to hopefully eliminate some of those pesky Necrons. So, with that all said, let's have some dramatic reading. Oh, before that, again, I'm running 3 command points each side at the start of the game, with 1 each turn, just so I get more and more used to using the stratagems, etc. So, here we go then, with dramatic reading. Chain of Command. The battle between the Imperium and the Necrons continued to ebb and flow, shifting ominously towards Electia Prime's vast basilica. The Ultramarines and Necrons have begun targeting enemy leaders with lightning-fast precision strikes. If one force can disrupt the chain of command, perhaps they can buy time for their troops to achieve their objectives and turn the war in their favour. Necrons. Necron Patrol. Targets of opportunity. Necron patrols stalk the ruins, responding to reports of Canoptic scouts and launching ambushes on Imperial units. They seek to disrupt their foes by engaging them on as many fronts as possible, seizing territory block by block and eliminating targets of opportunity. Space Marines, Ultramarines Assault Group. Delaying tactics. The Ultramarines are focused upon striking Necron command nodes, destroying or driving back the Xenos commanders, and making use of their resulting confusion to recover lost ground. The longer they can disrupt the enemy operations with such tactics, the more time they buy for their allies to make a breakthrough. So, game is set. Sides have been chosen. I did an off-screen roll-off, so the Ultramarines are the attackers in this scenario. I believe that's correct, yes. Ultramarines are attackers in this scenario, with the Necrons defending. So all what's left is to see who gets first turn. Ooh, that's close. The Necrons get it with a 5. So, without further ado, here we go with turn 1 of Chain of Command. End of Necrons turn 1, and the Spiders and Scarab have moved up over here. The Immortals have stayed their position. They even managed to shoot and kill a assault intercessor and wounding another. The warriors advanced here, and that's pretty much it. I haven't brought the flayed ones in yet, because I didn't want them sat around for a turn to get shot and charged by the assault intercessors. But they are going to come in, most likely next turn, once I see where the Ultramarines have positioned themselves. So, without further ado, we can move on to Ultramarines Turn 1. End of Ultramarines Turn 1, and all we've done is manage to achieve killing a single Necron warrior. I have got a morale test, as we lost a single Marine, though they will pass. Yeah, 4 + 1 is 5, and they got 8 to leadership, so that's fine. So that can be removed. Other than that, really, aggressors advanced and got a 6. I could have got to the objective, but I didn't want to leave myself too open. So I decided to play safe for the start of the game. Assault intercessors also advanced, but only got a 2, but they got them 5 inches over the terrain. And that is that, really. It's they managed to score no victory points at all, but we still have 4 turns left to play, and it's on to Necrons then for turn 2. End of Necrons turn 2 then. Everything happened much as I thought it would do. The warriors continued to make a movement forward. The spider and scarabs hid behind the building a bit more. The immortals opened up at the assault intercessors again, killing this time 2 and wounding a 3rd. So that poor librarian is now a valid target for anything that wants to shoot at him. The flayed ones came in, and even with a command reroll failed, they got a 6 on their initial charge and rerolled to a double 1. But that does help me score 2 objectives this turn, and an additional 1 for controlling more than the opponent, so putting the Necrons at 25 points. 2-0. Right then, on to the Ultramarines turn 2. Let's see if they can achieve a bit better. End of Ultramarines turn 2, and the tide of blue has just surged in and killed everything. Went poorly for the assault intercessors over there. There was only 2 of them to start with. Now there's only the sergeant, who is on 1 wound. Can't believe scarabs actually did something good in combat. As we consolidate into the enemy. So he does need a morale test for sergeant all on his own. He lost 3 of his brothers this turn. Ouch. Okay, he's gone. I think 6 + 1 is 9, and an assault intercessor sergeant's leadership is 8. So 1 member of the unit flees. Never thought I'd see an Ultramarine turn and run. When we get the army rules, at least for Ultramarines, we can ignore modifiers for morale tests and such, I believe. So that'd be pretty cool. But as it is, that squad has fled the battlefield. Scarabs and the Spider are holding up that objective. But the Librarian is on a mission to hunt down and eliminate that Royal Warden. So, end of the Ultramarines turn. They score 2 for objectives and 1 for holding more than the opponent, putting them at 15 to 25. And a poor counter-offensive from the Necrons have left them running a single command point, and the flayed ones did no damage at all. Actually, no, sorry, yeah, 1 wound did go through. So, yeah, it's not looking good for the Necrons. They've lost a considerable chunk of their force, and there is only 4 immortals left to dish out some damage. So, without further ado, then, here we go. Necrons turn 3. End of Necrons turn 3, and it hasn't gone very well, I'm afraid. We score a single victory point for holding an objective, but we have also killed the Librarian. The Spider went in, and just poor librarian. He hit with 3 of his 5 attacks and wounded with 3 of his 5 attacks. And the librarian failed his save on 3 of his 3 saves. Each one of those turned to 2 wounds, which is more than enough to fell the mighty librarian. All the Ultramarines can hope to do is eliminate the Royal Warden and exact a little bit of vengeance. I think it's going to be all over either way, so here we go then with the Ultramarines turn 3. End of Ultramarines turn 3 then, and with a lot of rerolls it has turned into a rather decisive victory. I went from having 5 command points down to just 1 at the moment, but it was worth it. The aggressors turned their failed assault charge into a success and have eliminated the Royal Warden. The Ultramarines have scored 2 for objectives and 1 for holding more than the opponent, because the Spider is just out of the 3-inch range. So not only do we get the Warlord, we get 15 extra points, pushing us to 30. It is 30 on the Necrons as well, because they scored 1 for holding objective over there. It's a tied game at the moment, so I'll have to play at least one more round in order to find out who will be most victorious. But courage and honour, brothers. Courage and honour. Here we go with Necrons turn 4. Okay, end of Necrons turn 4, and that was a pretty quick turn. The Immortals, seeking revenge on their Royal Warden, charged the aggressors, initially failing, but with a command reroll, got the 3 inches they needed to get into combat. They did manage to kill one of the aggressors, although he was already wounded from a shooting attack, and I managed to get 2 shots down from the level above. The Spider sadly didn't last much longer against the assault intercessors there, and even with a command reroll he failed to explode. Did he get close? Got a 5. But it is now down to the Ultramarines on their turn, and I think it's going to be an Ultramarine victory, because they'll score 2 points for having those 2 objectives, an extra point for having more than the opponent, so that puts them up to enough of 15 points. And all importantly, they've got the Warlord. So I think I'll call it there. All what's left for us to do then is to see what's in our next Imperium. So, issue 57 brings us the next Toonblade. So this is the one with the Tesla carbines. We learn all about the Living Saint, Saint Celestine. And we have a fold-out on Warzone Electia. Issue 58, we get our second Canoptek Wraith, so a lot of seconds coming up. We build and paint our Wraiths, and we add some extra details to our Canoptek Scarabs, if you're painting according to the magazine. We learn about choosing our army lists, and we get our 4th and final mat. So that's going to be quite cool. It's a nice one. We've got rather lava effect, we've got a Necron energy effect there, and it's a nice city fight. We've got our ruins in 4 locations and a reactor. So that's pretty cool. I really can't wait to play games on these bigger mats. It'll be interesting to see if they connect up to any others. Well, I don't think it will, because we ain't got any that matches the terrain. But yeah, that's going to be pretty cool, and we'll be having, in the near future, games with 4 mats, so I'm definitely going to need my floor for that. But that is it for issue 56 of Imperium. So, what did you think of that? Would you have done anything different? Personally, I don't think I would have changed much on my tactics, really. Maybe kept the warriors back in a more defensible position. Might, next time, try out with the Technomancer, because it might be good to use him and the warriors to go forwards. With him healing them, they might last a little longer. And I think I might definitely go for the Primaris Lieutenant over the Librarian. He was good. Sadly, the only time he was able to do a Psychic phase, he got a 1 on the Mortal Wound. Killing a single Immortal though, that did help. It reduced the amount of incoming fire. But sadly, he did die to the spider. So, yeah, I wouldn't have done much different, I don't think. So, yeah, 3 extra points for the Ultramarines at least. So that would give them their victory. Again, let me know what you think in the comments down below, and also don't forget to put your predictions of what our next bonus 10 issues of Imperium are going to be. So issues 81 to 81 to 90. We'll hopefully see more of that in the future. But all that's left for me to say is thank you all for watching. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more mad content. And I will see you next time on the Imperium journey. Goodbye.